This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Tatiana Suarez, who this past weekend, in front of almost 18,000 people at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, at UFC Fight Night, in the co-main event spot, defeated the great Jessica Andrade by submission via guillotine choke in the second round. The official time, 1:31 of round 2. Mark, let me start with you this time, as we always do. Give us your impressions of your girl, Tatiana, getting the biggest win of her career, defeating in impressive style, in emphatic style, the biggest name on her resume to date in Jessica Andrade. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man. As I said last week, I love Jessica Andrade, but Tatiana Suarez is a problem. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that we may be looking at a future double champ. She's that good. And yes, there's absolutely room for the striking to improve. I wouldn't say she's like well-rounded perfection, but the grappling, wrestling, size combo that she brings into the cage, especially at 115, is just overwhelming and a level above anyone that she's stood across from thus far. All she has to do is get a hold of you. It doesn't even have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, like arms wrapped around. Doesn't have to be perfect single leg, nothing. All she has to do is get a hold of you, and she will find a way to reposition her body and affect your balance so that in the end she ends up on top of you. No perfect entry, no big blast takedown. She doesn't need it because she is that good of a wrestler, and she will find a way to put you on her back. And then the submission game that comes with it. She chokes out Andrade while barely even being able to lock her hands. So, huge win for Tatiana. She's got to be getting very close to a title shot at this point now. I know she only just came back to this division. Her prior fight was up at 125. I know the top of the division is a bit cloudy, so who knows what happens here, but can't position herself much better than she did on Saturday.
Omar, what were your thoughts watching Tatiana Suarez put an exclamation on this performance by finishing Jessica Andrade with that guillotine choke?
I mean, what more can you say? Jessica Andrade has had a little bit of a rocky last few fights. I think she's lost 3 out of her last 4 fights at this point, 3 in a row. But she's been active too, so there is something to be said about that. She's fought, I think, 5 times in the last year, 2 years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. So it's been a very short time frame for her to be taking all these fights. With that being said, the size difference was apparent. I mean, Jessica Andrade has never been the tall girl in the division, but when you go down to 115, it's been less of a towering, I feel like, with some of her opponents, right? Even Lemos was 115, right? And even she was a little bit bigger than Andrade, but not crazily so as she has been at 125. Tatiana Suarez brings the size issue that she was at 125, but down at 115. And it's really a big problem, and it kind of reminds me of Patchy Mix, right? Patchy Mix is a gigantic human being to be. I was talking to my wife today about it, and I was talking about the relationship. I was listening to Tatiana's thing on MMA Hour, and I'm picturing Patchy Mix, and I'm like, this man looks like a lightweight. And then I was like, no, 135. Fights at 135.
Yeah.
He's a big dude, and Tatiana kind of strolls around with that same kind of energy, just much bigger for her division, on top of the fact that she is stupidly skilled. I couldn't have been happier for her, though, man. I'm a big Tatiana Suarez fan. She's a fun personality, and she's ridiculously good inside of the octagon.
Dude, I think she's listed at like 5'5" or something.
Yeah.
But she seems like she's so much bigger and so much taller.
Yeah. Agreed. I would have thought she was 5'7", 5'8",
Yeah,
just by
right.
the way she like carries herself in the octagon and can just towers over some of these girls.
Yeah.
To follow on the mix point, they fight so similarly. Like, it must be so easy for them to find little tips to be like, hey, like I just was doing this and it worked. Like, you should try it. And they can just easily do exactly what's working for the other person. You know what I mean? It's like their games fit so perfectly together.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Did she call anybody out in her post-fight? She said she wants the top now, right? She's going for the top.
Title.
She wants the
I don't know
title.
if she said their names necessarily, but I think she just said she wants the title, yeah.
when she talked on MMA Hour recently, she was talking about how she wanted the title. She didn't really care who held the title. If she couldn't get the title next for whatever reason, I think she was down for either Yan Xiaonan or it might have been one other name. But Yan Xiaonan was the one that stuck with me because I was like, it might be time for that if she doesn't get an immediate title shot. But to be honest, man, she's kind of earned it as far as I'm concerned. She hasn't lost. She looks dominant in almost everything that she's ever done. And it would be crazy. Like, she just came back from all of these issues that she's had with her health and things like that and injuries. And for her to become champion in a year after a layoff, I mean, that sells itself as far as I'm concerned because she has a real shot of winning that belt.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? She is now 10-0 overall as a pro. She stays undefeated. I believe she's 6-0 in the UFC. If you want to say 7-0 in the UFC, if you want to throw in her win on the Ultimate Fighter finale. What do you think is next for her? Do you think she waits until she gets her title shot, or do you see another opponent lined up in front of her before she gets to that summit? Mark?
I'm sorry, who'd you ask? Me? I mean, you'd like to say she should fight the winner of Weili and Lemos because she deserves a title shot, as Omar said, but I kind of still think they're going to give that shot to Yan Xiaonan, especially if it's Weili who wins. If it's Weili, I think 1,000,000% they're going Weili versus Yan. So, and then it's like you don't want to say Suarez should fight Yan Xiaonan because then we'd have to wait for that to happen, and whoever wins this Weili Lemos fight that's very soon ends up waiting for them. So I think it's going to be one of them that just straight up gets the title shot here between Tatiana and Xiaonan. So I don't know. Either she gets it, or if it does go the other way and she ends up kind of with nothing, she may have to take like a stay busy fight, which I don't know who even makes sense. She might have to fight like a Virna Jandiroba, someone like that, just to keep active in the meantime if she doesn't get this title shot. But I think you got to see even who wins the Lemos Weili fight.
What about you, Omar? What do you think?
No, I kind of agree. I think we kind of need to see how things play out to see exactly where the division moves from there. Weili's been pretty dominant. The whole Yan Xiaonan factor is going to come into play, especially when you talk about selling in Asia and kind of building up that market over there in Asia. That's a big fight. But as of right now, it's Amanda Lemos who's got the ticket, and I guess it really depends on where she wants to go from that. And I think that's why Suarez said if she has to take another fight, if Yan Xiaonan has to take another fight for whatever reason, I think ideally that would be this fight that makes sense as a backup.
Let's talk about the woman in this contest who came up on the other end here, Jessica Andrade, who all three of us rate pretty highly, is now looking at a 3-fight losing streak and quite a bit of red on her record as of late in the past few years overall. After rattling off a 3-fight win streak over Cynthia Calvillo, Amanda Lemos, and Lauren Murphy, she has now dropped 3 in a row. So, Omar, let me start with you for this time for Andrade. Looking at the landscape of the division, what do you think could be next for her?
Man, I was just thinking about this, with the wife the other day about where she goes, what makes sense, because she's kind of put herself in a little bit of a hole where looking for gold is difficult now in either division that she's been jumping into, right? Whether it's 115 or 125, getting gold, I think, is at least, I mean, you'd have to have a streak at this point. You'd have to have 2 or 3 wins minimum, I think, unless you're like wrecking girls that have been at the very top of the heap somehow. But getting those fights, I think, is going to be a real problem for her at this point. Yeah. It's really difficult to say. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Jessica Andrade decided to hang it up, just based on the landscape and what she'd have to do to work her way back up. I don't know if that's something that she wants to do at this point. But I think she would have to fight somebody kind of outside of the top 5, because right now she is top 5. She is number 5. Actually, she's number 6 in the strawweight division. So I think she's going to have to fight somebody in the 15 or in the 10 and kind of put up her spot, essentially, right? And see if she can keep it and earn it. I mean, maybe somebody like an Amanda Hebos might make sense at this point. She's number 11 in the division. I know she just had a fight, didn't she?
Hebus, yeah, she just fought a couple weeks ago.
But she's been fighting at flyweight, so you're saying go back up for Andrade?
I mean, I don't know where she would stay. I think it's just a matter of
I mean, I guess
what fights make sense.
To see her at either weight at this point, whatever fight she likes, she'll probably sign on for.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? What do you think could be next for Jessica Andrade?
I don't think she'll retire. She's only 31 years old, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
And how about the fact that we all put her in our top 10 and then she promptly loses 3 in a row?
Wow. She's 31. That means that she's been in the UFC since
right?
she was 21, because she started fighting the UFC in 2013.
Yeah.
Dog, she has 36 fights at 31 years old.
Wow. Crazy. If she does stay at 115, I think her and Marina Rodriguez would be a booking that makes some sense at this moment and should be fireworks potentially. So I'll go there.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Man, cannot wait to see Tatiana Suarez competing in the octagon next. It's her time, man. Don't you just feel it? I feel it. It's her time.
I do too. I'm getting those
I feel like
tingles.
we are entering or about to enter like the Tatiana Suarez era.
I don't think I've ever had a moment since Tough where I didn't think Tatiana Suarez was going to be the champion.
Wow.
It's just been
100%.
delayed
For sure.
nonstop by all the sickness and injuries and everything. Like the whole time I've been like, even when she was out, I was like, man, I hope she can come back, because if she comes back healthy, she should still be the champion. Like, yeah, she's just that fucking good.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, there were moments there where you weren't really sure if she was going to come back. There was a lot of silence from her, from her side, right? Like, and her injuries were pretty extensive from what, like, I think both of her knees like took a shit.
Yep.
There might have been something with her neck as well. Like
She was sick at one point too. I forget the sickness, but she was dealing with something pretty bad there too.
Yeah, I know she came back from some kind of cancer already.
That was
like
pre-Tough, right? Yeah.
Right. That was already something that had happened, and then again she got messed up again along the way in the last 3 or 4 years. I think 3 years.
Yeah.
But man, that girl has overcome a lot of shit, and it would be great from a storyline standpoint. This is one of those ones that you want it to work out because it's a beautiful story.
For sure. All right, let's move on. In the interest of time, congrats to Tatiana Suarez and for being on the marquee in the co-main event slot. Is a little bit of a rarity because it was so good, and also the main event for this UFC fight night, once again, that went down at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, between Cory Sandhagen and Rob Font, was an amazing main event on paper. Didn't quite live up to the hype of this kind of a matchup between these two caliber bantamweights. Omar, let me start with you. Cory Sandhagen defeated Rob Font in a unanimous decision, shutout on the cards. Not a single judge gave Rob Font a single round. So it was 50-45, all 3 judges for Sandhagen. What were your thoughts? It was not a Sandhagen performance that's really gonna make its way onto his highlight reel at the end of his career.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody kind of can have those performances, especially when they're injured or if they get injured in there. You can remember Conor McGregor didn't have 100% when it came to beating the shit out of people when it came to the first Max Holloway fight that he had, right? He blew out his knee and he was on top of him for essentially 2 rounds. Things happen. People have to adjust. Cory would have been a dumbass to try to go out there and strike with a striker like Rob Font with an arm and a half. So he did what he had to do. It wasn't super exciting. Probably won't watch that fight again. But you can't deny the fact that Cory Sandhagen was dominant in that fight with one arm. And you also can't deny that Cory Sandhagen looked kind of like made it easy. There wasn't a ton of resistance when it came to Rob Font's game, especially when it came to the takedowns, the repeated takedowns, the top game that was just so heavy. And anytime Rob Font tried to get a little bit of momentum, a little bit of gas going on there, Cory Sandhagen was able to take him down and able to counter that stuff. And you know, like I said, it's not visually potentially very exciting, but that was a skillful fucking performance from Cory Sandhagen.
Mark, what did you think? Cory Sandhagen with a torn tricep. He believes at some point in the first round. I saw a quick video of his saying he doesn't even know when it happened, but he believes it was at some point in the first round. What was your take on his performance in light of the fact that he tore his tricep?
Yeah, I agree with all that, really. It certainly wasn't the most exciting fight ever, and I'm sure it's not what people were picturing when they thought of Cory and Font standing in there across from each other. But it was still an extremely technical and extremely dominant performance from Cory Sandhagen. He's showing that he has evolved into a complete martial artist and that he's now capable of taking the fight wherever his advantage is the most pronounced. And against Rob Font, it was on the ground. And, as you guys said, I understand he had this tricep injury in the first round, and maybe his strategy would have been different if not for that. But he was already going for takedowns right out of the gate in round one. So it looked like it was going to be a large part of the strategy either way. And early, Font actually looked really sharp off his back. He had the guillotine attempt first. Then he had the Kimura to stand back up. So it was like, oh, shit, like Font brought the ground game here. But from there, it got easier for Cory. I think he just hit another single leg on the lead leg of Font just now. And it's not even like Font defended badly on the ground. He just couldn't stop it from getting there. On the ground, he did well off his back. Cory couldn't really get all that much done. He kind of won the fight simply off control. But when you control 90% of a fight, it's not really that hard to score. So well done for Cory. We will see how quickly he heals up here, and that will probably determine where he ends up slotting in next. But despite the little bit of hate he's catching online and stuff like that, it was a pretty damn solid win.
I'm sure he doesn't mind getting any of that hate because he's taken it all the way to the bank, and he maintains and improves his record. He now improves to 17-4 as a pro, and after losing those back-to-back fights against T.J. Dillashaw and Piotr Jan, he now is on another win streak, now having 3 in a row over Yadong Song, Chito Vera, and now Rob Font. So adding big names at bantamweight to his record. Rob Font is no slouch, and with a torn tricep, he did kind of make it look easy with the mixed martial arts. That being said, Mark, let me stay with you here. What's next for the Sandman?
I feel like I'm saying the same exact thing here as I just said with Suarez, but I'm not sure, honestly. We have Aljo and O'Malley coming up really soon. You have Merab waiting in the wings if Aljo happens to lose this fight, or if Aljo wins and then decides he's going up to 145. If there's any scenario where it's who gets a title shot against O'Malley, it's probably going to be Merab. He's the one that deserves it. You have Cejudo talking nonstop. I think it's another one of these where you got to wait and see. You got to see who wins that title fight. If Aljo's still in the division, see how quick Cory recovers, and then figure it out from there. So, unfortunately, it's another one where I'm not going to give you a booking. But I will say it's not out of the realm of possibility that his next fight is for a title. We will just have to see.
Omar, what do you think?
So I do think that this is probably going to be Sterling's last fight at 135. So I do think he's going up to 145 after this win or lose. If Sean O'Malley wins, I think he gets Merab after that, and I think what would make sense for that point for Cory at that point would be Henry Cejudo. Both of them are injured at this point. Both of them probably have to take some time to recover and rehab and all this other stuff. I feel like the timelines will probably match up a lot better anyway. In the event that O'Malley loses that fight, depending again on the timeline, I could also see Cory Sandhagen versus Merab for the championship.
If it's a vacant belt, that's what it should be. It should not be Cejudo and Merab for the championship, with Cejudo coming off a loss. I would much rather have it be Cory and Merab.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about Rob Font real quick. After TKOing Adrian Yanez, he is unfortunately back in the loss column, and he unfortunately has lost 3 of his last 4. He's losing against the greats, which is the good thing. He's lost to Aldo, Chito, and now Cory. Omar, what do you think is next for Rob Font at 135 pounds? Who could he possibly be matched up with next at bantamweight?
Yeah, man, it's a rough one because he's also in a position where he's got a really nice spot, but he's, again, not... He's losing more than he's winning currently. So I also think he needs to kind of secure his spot with a win here, and I think he gives somebody kind of an opportunity. Umar Nurmagomedov just pulled out of a fight, I believe, because of a shoulder injury. I would imagine at this point, Rob Font took a bit of damage in that fight, so I would imagine he probably should take a little bit of time off. Maybe those timelines line up and we get Font versus Nurmagomedov.
Wow. Mark?
Yeah, I like that. I thought about that myself, actually. I ended up going with a guy who we're going to talk about here in a little bit, in Kyler Phillips. Phillips is not ranked by the UFC, I guess because he was out for so long. Just for reference, I should have looked. He is number 13 for me. But this is a guy who should be undefeated in the UFC. His one loss should have been a draw to Paiva. And then he has wins over Raoni Barcelos now, which we're going to get to, and Song Yadong. So he has proven that he's at this level, that he is a ranked level fighter. I think he deserves a shot against someone who matters. And, Rob Font's been a little bit up and down, and I think it's not unfair to ask him to show that he can turn back one of these guys trying to break through here. So I will go Kyler Phillips.
That would be a great bit of matchmaking. Cool, man. Let's move on now. Unless you guys have anything else you want to throw out there about Cory and or Rob. Cool? Cool. Hey, you know what's really exciting? I don't have a lag tonight after over a month.
Don't. Fuck, I didn't even realize that.
I don't have a delay.
You're all welcome.
Is that you?
Wow,
Is that you're doing?
That is correct. Your boy figured it out.
What is it?
It's your computer, Mike.
Well, then what did you do to my computer?
I turned off
He was there this morning, dude. You didn't see it?
I turned off the 4K ability, so we're recording in 1080 only. So your computer has a seizure every time it's recording in 4K. So
now, is this verified? How can you be sure that it's that function?
Because it's fucking working, Mike.
It could be a coincidence. I'm just saying, it could be a coincidence.
This is why I do IT, Mike. This is why I do IT.
Okay. Man. I'll take it. All right. Moving on down the line here in the light heavyweight division. Once again, UFC Fight Night. Sandhagen versus Font went down at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, in front of 17,000 plus. Once again, light heavyweight division. Dustin Jacoby gets it done over Kennedy Nzechukwu. I think I got this one wrong. By TKO in the first round. We knew that there was going to be fireworks in this one. The official time, 1:22 of round one. Mark, start us off. It was a bit of a race to see who could damage the other man first. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, Kennedy made it that way, kind of. Last week I did pick Kennedy by split decision in the end. I had said I was pretty torn on it, but I did make the point that Dustin was going to be far and away the highest level striker that Kennedy Nzechukwu had been standing across thus far. And, Jacoby's a proven striker on many different levels at this point in his career. And to go back to my initial point, I just don't know if Kennedy coming out and walking down that type of credentialed striker in zombie-type fashion was the right way for him to be going about things. Even as I was watching it and seeing the way that Kennedy was choosing to pressure, I was like, this guy's going to fucking walk into a shot. And it's exactly what he did. Jacoby's timing is too good to just play that game that aggressively that early in the fight when Jacoby is fresh as a daisy. And it's a huge KO for him. He lands, perfect counter, puts him out. And it's big for him. He's had a couple tough losses lately, so now he bounces back in a huge way, statement way, and he should be setting himself up for a nice fight.
Omar, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, Jacoby really landed on him in that on the chin there. I feel like I wish I would have went back and rewatched it, but I feel like I was not 100% okay with that stoppage. I felt like it was a little early. Like I said, I wish I would go back and be able to watch it right now, but I don't want to.
20% of me was like,
yeah.
But it didn't bother me.
And let's be clear, he got clipped on the chin, his legs gave out, he went down on the ground, he was conscious, and then he took a couple of extra ones.
Yeah.
But he was still there, and I think that was really the problem that I kind of had. He looked like he was ready to, he was going to defend himself. I don't think it was one of those where he was turtling up and nothing was going to change. I still had the feeling like the fight was still on.
What made me feel okay was that him like sitting all the way up and being like, huh, only happened when Jacoby got removed. So I was like, you know what? Maybe if he didn't get removed, it would have been 2 more punches without Kennedy even being able to sit up. So that's why I was kind of like...
Yeah, I thought he did turtle up a little bit, and it was the unfortunate circumstance where, like, the instant you could see that the referee has committed to intervening is like as the referee is putting his arm in to stop the fight is when Nzechukwu is like, okay, I have to sit up at some point. So it
wasn't an egregious stoppage or anything like that. Like I'm not gonna go.
We've seen worse.
Yeah, for sure. But I wish he was given just a couple more seconds to see if he could recover.
Yeah, it could be a fine line, man. That refereeing thing, man, it's a fine line. Where were we here? Let's talk about Mr. Jacoby. After quite a win streak, he dropped 2 decisions in a row to Khalil Roundtree Jr. and Mirzakhanov. And now he gets back in the win column with a very nice win over a fellow dangerous light heavyweight in Nzechukwu. Mark, what do you think is next for Dustin Jacoby? If you were the matchmaker of the UFC and you're looking at the light heavyweight landscape, you got Kennedy. You got Jacoby. What are you doing with him?
So, Volkan Ozdemir, who I believe Jacoby mentioned, if I'm remembering right, is fighting the man who just beat Jacoby, Azamat Mirzakhanov, next month. If Volkan loses that fight, I think he makes perfect sense as a next little bit of a step-up type opponent for Dustin. If Volkan wins that fight, maybe it doesn't make quite as much sense. So in that case, I'd have to pivot to maybe like a Dominic Reyes, which I don't like quite as much. But if Volkan loses, that's where I go, Volkan and Jacoby.
Omar?
Real quick, as a little allude to the MMA sphere, Mirzakhanov is out of his fight with Ozdemir.
Dude, they should just put Jacoby in.
So they replaced him with with a Bogdan Guskov.
Okay.
Well, Volkan's probably going to win that fight then.
One hopes, but Volkan is another one that I don't.
Won't mean that much then. So
not at all.
I'm sticking with it. Volkan and Jacoby.
Yeah. Honestly, dude, I wouldn't mind a Ryan Spann fight. I'm not really sure where Ryan Spann is or what he's doing. I feel like it's been a little bit since we've seen him.
He's fighting Anthony Smith.
Oh, for fucking Christ!
Rematch.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I'm just gonna go with the loser of that fight then.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Well done.
At least I think he's fighting Anthony Smith in a rematch, right? I'm not making that up, right? Now I'm checking.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Singapore.
Yeah.
It's only a couple weeks away too, so it's not even that bad.
Do you guys have anything to say about a possible next matchup for Kennedy, or do you guys want to move on in the interest of time?
I'll give you one quick. I think the loser of a fight we're going to preview in a little while between Khalil Roundtree and Chris Daukaus would be a perfect next opponent for Kennedy.
That would be nice.
I agree.
Same card.
I second that.
Not same card. Upcoming card. Okay, let's move on now. One more recap, and then we will hop into our lightning round. UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Font. Let's see. Where was this at? In the featherweight division, Diego Lopes. Don't call him Lopes anymore.
Oh, is it Lopez?
They were saying Lopez.
You didn't hear me saying this earlier? They called him Lopez the whole night after calling him Lopes last time.
Oh, no.
I think that might have been when you spilled your water.
We're back
maybe?
to...
Perhaps.
In the featherweight division, Diego Lopes defeated Gavin Tucker by submission via armbar. The official time, 1:38 of the very first round. Is it me, or is there something about this guy? He seems to have a bit of an aura
he's a beast.
about him. He's like a really like let's watch out for this guy. Omar, what were your thoughts of how this fight played out in only a little more than a minute and a half?
Dude, Diego Lopes is a beast, and we talked about this last week, right? Like in a loss, or Lopez, I'm sorry, in a in a situation in a situation where he came in short notice. He came in against a guy that no one thought he could beat. No one thought he was even going to really be able to put up a contest against. And frankly, I thought he came out looking better than the dude that beat him. And we were all pretty high on him. And he comes in and he absolutely performs. And he performs, I think, as good as anybody can perform on a stage of that magnitude. So I was super happy for him. I mean, I don't know what we picked, but I think we all did. I don't think I had a decision. I think we all went with finishes for this, right?
I will check. Fuck! I only write down the winner. I don't write down the way. But we all picked Lopez. But yeah, I don't know. I picked sub. I know that.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I don't think I would have chosen a decision. Should go back and listen. But Diego Lopez is a beast, man. I'm really excited to see what happens with his career here.
Yeah, man. Mark, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I picked sub, I was debating whether I should pick Lopez by sub because of how capable we know Gavin Tucker is on the ground. And it was the first fucking grappling exchange. The first one. One setup, couple tweaks, and Gavin Tucker was done. Like, that's unbelievable. The grappling of Diego Lopez is a real problem, and I'm very excited to see this man in there again. And it says something, too, about how good Movsar Evloev is, which we do already know. But the fact that he went 15 minutes dealing with all of that shows you how good he is. But, yeah, tough way for Gavin Tucker to make his return here, but hell of a way to get your first UFC victory for Lopez. It wasn't a flying triangle, as Bisping inexplicably kept saying in the interview, but it was nearly as cool as that.
Yes. Has Diego Lopez, has he burst onto the Prio rankings now with a nice win in the UFC?
Dude, he has. We'll save it.
We'll wait. Okay.
He's the highlight of the Prio rankings.
Here we go. Do we want to mention who we think he could fight next, possibly at 145 pounds? Omar, why don't you take this one first? Sorry, Mark.
No.
I kind of want to see this man jump up pretty high. I am curious to see where Mark has him at this point, but I kind of want to see him fight somebody like an Andre Fili. Andre Fili's just coming off a loss to Nathaniel Wood. Tough fight, but I just think Lopez is that good that I don't really think it matters who they put him up against at this point. He just needs to get to the top 15. He needs the opportunity.
Mark?
Yeah, this guy is very suddenly, I think, in this mix right outside the rankings here. But with that said, it is only one win, so I think he needs to prove it against another vet before we go throwing him a ranked fighter, which is the same route Omar just went. I think the perfect guy to provide that test would be another guy who won on this card. The timelines would align, and I will say Billy Quarantillo.
Okay, another winner from this card that we were talking about. We are about to get to Billy Q, and if you guys don't have anything else to say, let us now hop right into our lightning round. So if you don't know, if you're joining us for the very first time, thank you. Our lightning round is where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quickest, most lightning-like takes of the remaining bouts from this UFC Fight Night card. Here we go. In the lightweight division, in what opened up the main card of this UFC Fight Night card, Ludovic Klein gets it done over Ignacio Bahamondes by unanimous decision. Omar, go first.
Dude, what a crazy fight. I don't even know where to begin with that fight. That fight was absolutely back and forth. I don't even really remember how I had this fight scored, man, but it was a crazy back and forth fight. I felt like Ludovic Klein won that fight. I am remembering that Ludovic Klein won that fight. Bahamondes, I think, also agreed that Ludovic Klein had won that fight. But it was a great performance from Ludovic Klein. Really good.
Mark.
Sorry, I wrote the bouts in the wrong order here. I just realized we should have been doing Boser and then Klein, but
that's fine.
Yeah, the first round of this fight, I thought, was a big key, and it could not have gone any better for Ludovic Klein. And the reason I say that is because, first off, for Klein, he walked Bahamondes down. He got inside the kicking range. He was able to outbox him in tight, hurt him with some big shots. But the reason I say it's the key is that I really feel like he tired him out with the grappling. But Bahamondes didn't have that same, bounce in his step that we're used to seeing coming out of that first round after the prolonged grappling exchange there. So I thought that was a big help for Klein. Bahamondes was there to scrap for sure, but Klein had him thinking about the takedown. He got another one in the second, and it just had Ignacio kicking less than we normally see from him. So it just changed the fight a bit. And I hadn't really thought about this pre-fight, but Ludovic was easily the best striker that Bahamondes has faced in the UFC so far. He hasn't really fought any incredibly dangerous strikers just yet, and Klein is pretty skilled. So he got, I don't want to say exposed, but some holes shown a little bit in the game of Bahamondes, but a really well-rounded win for Ludovic Klein.
Nice. Okay, hopping back up into the light heavyweight division, the Canadian wonder, the bulldozer Tanner Boser, gets back in the win column over Alexa Kamer. Marco first.
Boser was just better here, man. He was faster. Footwork was better. He was pressuring well. He was strong in the clinch. And a big key was simply just that he was the better boxer. For a guy who Omar knocks for his striking, it looked pretty damn solid here. He was finding angles to land punches, to land elbows, all fight long, and not just jabs. Like, there was a bunch of clean connections that Kamer was actually kind of eating, to his credit. But there was just nothing Kamer had to deter the pressure of Boser in this fight. So good win for him, and a needed win for him at light heavyweight here.
Okay, Omar.
Yeah, dude, that was good. That was a really good performance from Boser, man. I can't talk shit about it. It was great. His striking was on point. He kept his jab really, really active. He even kept the cross really active as well. I think a lot of that had to do, though, with the opportunities that Kamer was giving him. And credit to Boser for recognizing it and keeping the pace up and taking advantage of all the opportunities that Kamer was giving him. Now, I don't know what the hell they're feeding Kamer, but Jesus Christ, that boy ate so much shit in that fight.
He did.
It was getting really weird to watch. He was getting lit up left and right. And I think the only reason that fight didn't get stopped was because he kept throwing back. And he kept landing from time to time on Boser. And I don't think Boser was ever in any real danger, because by a certain point, Kamer didn't really look like he even had a ton of power behind a lot of his punches. But that dude never stopped fighting. I don't even know if that's a good thing with as much damage as he took in that fight. But it made for one hell of a fight to watch. So good on both of them. And definitely the best striking I've ever seen from Tanner Boser. So credit to him.
Yeah, man. All right, in the featured bout of the prelims of this UFC Fight Night, in the bantamweight division, Kyler Matrix Phillips gets the win over Raoni Barcelos by UD. Omar, go first.
Yeah, man, Kyler Phillips is good, man. I think there are opportunities there for him to get better. And his current state, as much as I like him, Steph Curry of MMA may not be 100% accurate.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
I take it back.
Saying.
I take it back.
You know what I mean? He's good though. He's really fun to watch. He's really active, very creative with his strikes. I just think he needs to be a little sharper and a little bit more purposeful with what he throws. He expends a lot of energy doing a lot of random shit sometimes that doesn't really help him. But he does a lot of things in there too that work really well that I think he needs to kind of, I would imagine he would just, I think if he stuck to it a little bit more, spent less energy on the random shit that never was even close to landing, I think he would make a more efficient use of his energy and probably be a lot better in those third rounds than a lot of times he's lacking. I think somebody like him can't be dropping rounds at the end of a fight.
Mark, sorry.
Yeah.
You're done.
No, that was the end. Boom, boom.
This was a great contest. Both of these guys are really so talented and so well-rounded. You could see how high-level the grappling and scrambling was from each guy. Neither one of them could hold the other for more than a few seconds at a time. And as much as they were somewhat closely matched on the feet, I think the real story was just that for the first 2 rounds of this fight, Raoni had a really hard time tracking Kyler Phillips down. He just couldn't land anything too significant on Phillips because his defense and movement was so on point. So he does seem to have a bit of a problem fading late in fights that he needs to work on. It's not the first time we've seen that. He did do enough in the first 10 minutes to get this done, but yeah, I really feel like Kyler Phillips is like the prototypical potential guy. Like, if you're looking at him as a coach, you must be like, oh, my God, this guy could be so good. And I don't want to say he's not trying hard, because I'm sure he 100% is, but it's almost like you watch him and you're like, damn, dude, like, if you just dialed it up like one notch, like a little more aggressive, tried a little more to like land meaningful shots. Like, it seems like there is so much talent there and that he could be legitimately elite. But it almost seems like he just kind of relies on the talent and not coasts. I'm not trying to insult the guy because he's really good. But all I'm trying to say, I guess, is that there is a lot more potential that I think can be unlocked.
Agreed.
Okay. In the welterweight division, the Guyanese Carlston Harris gets it done over Jeremiah Wells by submission via anaconda choke, technical submission, in the third round. Mark, staying with you. Take it.
Wells spent the first 10 minutes of this fight looking like an absolute wrestling and grappling athletic monster. I mean, he really looked fantastic. And props to Carlston Harris because he endured all of that, and he kept himself safe through all 10 of those minutes and in some tough spots like that ninja choke that he survived. And then in round 3, Wells makes one mistake, and Harris uses it to flip the whole fight on its head. You know, Wells put his head in a bad spot on a takedown attempt. Harris tightens up an anaconda, and Wells very quickly went from, I think, thinking he was fine to sleeping. So, unreal finish and a huge win for Carlston Harris.
Omar.
Yep. Yeah, I'll just add that the choke that he was able to get there was a blood choke. And those things are some of the most deceptive chokes because as somebody who's, if you're in a choke, like a regular rear naked choke, for example, or something like that, you can feel that moment where you're not able to breathe anymore, right? That moment where you take in and you get a nice big gasp of air and you don't get anything. Nothing is working. You're still breathing in a blood choke. A lot of the times these dudes pass out because there's no blood going to their brain. And that is a slow burn, and you kind of don't even realize it's happening until you're getting woken up. So it's a very deceptive choke. I'm not surprised Jeremiah Wells didn't tap because I'm sure he thought he was fine, especially if he was breathing even shallowly. I'm sure he was like, as long as I can breathe, I'm not going to go out. It goes to show you blood chokes work.
All right. In the featherweight division, Billy Q gets it done over Damon Jackson by unanimous decision. Omar, staying with you. Take it.
Yes, sir. This was a crazy ass fight. What do you expect from Billy Q at this point? Once the third round hits, you already know somebody's about to get run the fuck over. And I gotta say, man, I thought Damon Jackson would be able to keep up, but by the end of round 1, that dude was looking rough. And he spent a lot of round 1 doing work, moving a lot. I mean, this was a great fight from both guys. But you could see the difference in the cardio when round 2 started. And to Damon Jackson's credit, man, he did not stop. He kept trying to fight, kept trying to push forward. But the longer that went on, that is, we say these analogies all the time and things like that, but that really was Billy Q taking him into deep waters, right? He was literally drowning that kid slowly, round after round. And in the third round, went through and almost melted him, to be honest. But Damon Jackson is not an easy guy to take out. He endured a lot of shit, especially in that third round. But I thought that was a very significant and very solidifying win for Billy Q. I loved it.
Mark?
Yeah, Jackson came out really strong here. He was the sharper fighter early. He was beating Billy to the punch, got the takedown, the groundwork. It was a great round 1 for him. But I said last week, I figured Billy would probably be down 1-0, but that I thought he could win the next 2 rounds, and that's exactly what he did. It's becoming his MO. He settled in round 2. You could see probably by mid-round that Damon was already feeling that pace, and then he took that round, and it all came down to round 3, which turned out to be an absolute war. Damon Jackson really, as Omar said, he bit down. He was like, all right, it's going to be a war, I'm in. But Billy got it done. He earned it. The guy's an animal. I mean, they both are. It was really a great fight, but Billy earned that decision.
Billy Q, man, back in the win column. The UFC is a better UFC when Billy Q is winning. Okay. Cody Durden, unanimous decision over Jake Hadley. Mark, go.
Another crazy fucking fight. Maybe crazier than that one. I don't know if anyone at all or any of us has made this comparison before, but I feel like Cody Durden is the flyweight version of Darren Elkins. Like, he just somehow gets every single opponent to fight a Cody Durden-style fight, and it just gets super ugly. But he's a better striker than he gets credit for, man. He's a well-rounded fighter. It's not just the wrestling. And, shout out to Jake Hadley, who I still think has a bright future, specifically for his escape from the Anaconda choke that went into an immediate back take. That was something that I've never seen in my life that will stick with me. But Cody got this done. I don't know about 30-27. I thought Hadley took round 2. Mm-hmm. But he got it done. A really great performance from him, and that man is a dog.
Omar.
I am going to take this moment to try and figure out if Mark knows what was the beef here. Because as soon as the fight was over, Cody Durden hit him with a Generation X, told him to suck it, and walked away, and Jake Hadley sat down bleeding like a child in the shower. So explain to me where the butt hurt is coming from, because there was some animosity there.
Dude, so they shook hands at the start of round 3. I don't know when it changed into that. I was confused.
Oh,
also.
Okay. It got hot. It gave me shades of Jones and Cormier, the first fight. It got real tense there once that fight was over, and you could see Hadley had nothing to say. He just accepted.
He was just too disappointed in himself.
He just accepted it at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, it's rough. Great fight though. I really love that fight. It was a lot of back and forth. Definitely a fight to watch.
By the way, supposedly Hadley had a horrible weight cut. He said, whatever this means, he said he had a moment where he saw God. So,
Jesus.
Whoa. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more. Catchweight bout, pretty much featherweight bout. Sean Woodson gets it done over. I forgot again already how to say this guy's name. Dennis Bazooka?
Bazookia, maybe they were saying.
I feel like if this is the same, I'm pretty sure this is the same guy from the Serra Longo team. I know his nickname is Bazooka, right?
Please.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Let's just call him.
Let's just call him Bazooka.
Bazooka. For now. Omar, go.
Sean Woodson with the heavy grappling. I was not surprised too much at the grappling. I guess I was surprised at how well it worked against somebody like Dennis Bazooka. He comes from a pretty good camp when it comes to the grappling, and Woodson was just kind of a step ahead of him at every turn. I don't know if the size difference made a big impact, although I'd imagine it did to some extent because Woodson is pretty big for that division. But it wasn't my favorite performance from Sean Woodson. I'm still not like 100% sold on him, but the kid is talented, man, and he definitely knows how to get a W.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, this was a solid scrap. I mean, Bazooka was game, and he showed some skill. I think it'll be interesting to see him again on a full camp, but largely this ended up being a showcase for Sean Woodson. Everything he did on the feet worked. He was ripping the body, had him hurt multiple times. And frankly, I think he could have potentially finished it if he just kept it there, but he couldn't resist the grappling again and again, where Bazooka was actually solid defensively. But either way, still a very strong performance from Sean Woodson.
Nice. Okay, last one. Asu Almabayev, round 2 submission over Odi Osborne. Mark, go.
What a great debut this was for Asu Almabayev. He came in with some respect on his name, and he showed it was right for it to be there. And I really liked what I saw. He was very fast, high-level grappling technique, and aggressive grappler. He mixed in strikes really well on the ground, I thought, to create openings for submission attempts. He looked heavy, more so than you would think based on the smaller frame, heavy on top, I mean. He had a sweet Peruvian necktie attempt in the first, and then got it done with the rear naked. So great job from him. He does really wing that right hand somewhat sloppily, which I could see better strikers pick up on, but we'll get there. Right now, we'll focus on the great debut.
Omar, take it home.
Yeah, man, it's a big spot for him, right? Odi Osborne's kind of been a little up and down, but it's still a name, I think, that holds a little bit of weight in the division. So it's definitely a way you want to come into the UFC. It's definitely the momentum you want to have. Good performance from him.
Okay. That does it for our lightning round. And a recap of every fight.